Over the weekend, Deputy Prime Minister Heng Keat outlined how the PAP's fourth-generation leadership team intends to take Singapore forward. He spoke of a more collaborative relationship between the government and the people, with the 4G leaders working with Singaporeans in new ways to design and implement policies together.
Now, for more insight on this, we're joined by Associate Professor Eugene Tan from the Singapore Management University School of Law. Good to see you as always, Eugene.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so what do you think? What's your take then on Mr. Heng's speech? Did he achieve what he set out to address?
Well, Steve, it's his most important speech since becoming Deputy Prime Minister last month. And I think it was a speech that in many ways was much anticipated. How would his generation of leaders lead and govern Singapore? How would they engage Singaporeans? You know, how different would it be? So I think in his speech he did outline, you know, his vision, one that is not just only consultative but also focusing a lot on action, you know, trying to tap that ground-up energy and passion. So I think in terms of him, you know, setting out the vision, I think he has raised expectations, right? Because now the task will fall on his team to be able to deliver on the vision. But I think it's also important to remember that this engagement process will also enable his generation of leaders, his team, to get to know Singaporeans better and for Singaporeans to get to know them better. And it's also very much a trust and confidence building exercise. But I think all eyes will be much now on what's going to happen now that the vision has been laid out, and we'll keep track on what's going to come of this Singapore Together movement.
So, Eugene, Mr. Heng also, you know, framed very carefully this idea of the fact that we are seeing an increasing number of differing views and the needs as well of Singaporeans is changing too, and that there might be potentially some trade-offs between what, you know, the government, between the government and the people of Singapore. So how can we prevent potential fractures in society?
Yep, so this collaborative and close engagement, you know, will certainly bring some of these diversity, you know, to be rubbing against each other. You know, so he highlighted about the different issues, you know, economic growth, environmental sustainability, LGBT issues and all. And so I think he was also signaling how important it is, you know, that even though differences will continue to exist, they should not divide Singaporeans. You know, and I think this is where, you know, we must remember to maintain that common space, learn to acquire, you know, the culture of civility, right? Being able to understand a different perspective. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to take it on board, but appreciating where someone who holds a different view from you is coming from. So I think it has become a lot more complex and with an aging society, you know, as he highlighted about, you know, the older Singaporeans having very different needs from younger Singaporeans. And I think it's that challenge, you know, how do you maintain that intergenerational equity? And so as we go through this engagement process, you know, it is important that people do acquire the sort of values, you know, that would make this engagement process work, you know, rather than it being a situation in which, you know, all these different tensions, you know, come to rub against each other in very unproductive ways.
Yeah, so you're sort of describing sort of a maturity to the electorate that will have to sort of take place to go hand in hand with all these consultative efforts that are being made. There's going to be a part of Singaporeans as well to step up to the plate and be able to do this as well.
It has to, right? Because if Singaporeans do not step up, if Singaporeans feel that there is no safe space for them to express their views, you know, to seriously engage with each other and with the government, then I think, you know, this whole process of, you know, Singaporeans engaging in that very ground-up process, you know, of action-oriented, you know, what Mr. Heng described as, you know, an enlarged democracy of deeds, you know, all that will not come to fruition. And I think what will then happen would be, you know, a greater amount of disappointment. So I think even as the vision is laid out, you know, what is really important is whether Singaporeans will rise to the occasion and have that capacity, you know, to engage with each other, you know, without fear or favor, and also with that respect, with that tolerance, and with the necessary understanding.
But Eugene, to step up without that fear of favour, and to be able to say what they feel and express as wide a range of views as they have, it's also going to mean that the government's going to need to be flexible as well. And it may mean that policies may need to change or be tweaked. Can the civil service, I mean, can it cope?
It has to, and one hopes that, you know, the tone from the political leadership, and if they show that they're committed to it, then I think the public service, you know, will have to rise to the occasion. They will certainly need, you know, to build capacity, right? Because, you know, it is not something that civil servants are used to, you know, to co-create policies, to co-create solutions. And so that will take some amount of getting used to. But the public service has started this process, you know, so whether you're talking about citizen jury, you know, to deal with issues such as diabetes, this is something that the public service has started. But I think that mindset shift, you know, Dawn, I think that's the question they're pointing to. The mindset shift really is important. And the question of, you know, are we prepared to sacrifice some amount of efficiency? You know, because when you have a more consultative process, when you try to engage with a wide variety of stakeholders, that will take a longer time, you know, as compared with a top-down, you know, I know best sort of process.
Well, given that it could then lead to things sort of playing out at a slower pace, perhaps, does that then just impact then on, you know, what people are looking out for, perhaps, when it comes to the timeline for the next general election? Well,
I think the consultation, you know, will have to run its course, and I would say that would take easily 6 months. You know, I think a too truncated, a very short consultation is not going to give confidence to Singaporeans. So I think, you know, we're looking at, you know, this consultation really as part of the whole process building up to the election. You know, it enables the fourth generation leaders to demonstrate, you know, to Singaporeans who they are, what do they stand for, what are their beliefs, but also for them, you know, to know the issues, you know. But I think when you look at Mr. Heng's speech closely, you know, I wonder whether, you know, we see the makings of the ruling party's manifesto, or, you know, or even because he talked about some of the issues that they need to deal with, you know, environmental sustainability, you know, action plan for the youth, you know. So really reaching out to different audiences, you know, including the seniors as well. And of course, you know, with a tagline like, you know, working with you, for you, you know, I think we will see more of that, you know, in the months ahead. And it may make its appearance, you know, when hustings come by.
And I'm sure we'll be seeing you as well as we build up towards those inevitable elections when they do indeed turn up. Associate Professor Eugene Tan from the Singapore Management University School of Law.